Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick preview and prediction for Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Of course this fight goes down this weekend, takes place at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, and it will be on pay-per-view on both DAZN and Showtime. Now, this is a fight I'm looking forward to. Two punchers, two quick-handed guys, explosive fighters. It's one of those fights to where I wouldn't be surprised if the first guy to make a mistake loses. It's one of those sort of fights, and I think it will be extremely tense. And quite frankly, I think this is a fight in which both guys have a legitimate chance of winning. I pretty much see this as a 50-50, to be honest. I can see either guy winning this fight by knockout. Points would surprise me a little bit, but it's certainly not outside the realms of possibility. And even a draw wouldn't shock me in this fight. It's one of those fights, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There are a couple of caveats that have to be considered here if you're making a prediction or you're betting on this fight. This fight is at a 136 catch weight, 136 pounds, just above lightweight. Of course, that will affect Ryan Garcia more, as he's the guy cutting more weight, you would imagine. And more importantly, there is a rehydration clause in this fight, which again will affect Ryan Garcia, a guy who a couple of fights ago moved to 140, so those factors have to be considered here. But nevertheless, let's briefly break down the tale of the tape, and we will then delve into what I believe each guy should do to win this fight, and then at the end of the video I will make my prediction. And as I'm making this video right now, I'm still not certain who I'm going to pick, so this one's a bit of a shot in the dark for me. But yeah, tale of the tape. Tank Davis has a record of 28-0, 26 of his 28 wins coming by way of knockout. Ryan Garcia has a record of 23-0, 19 of his 23 wins coming by way of knockout. As you can see by the records, both guys are big punchers. Tank has a higher knockout ratio, but you know, when it's that close, it's kind of hard to judge who truly hits harder. The bigger question may be who takes a shot better in regards to the power. Gervonta Davis is listed as 5'5.5" with a 67.5-inch reach, whereas Ryan Garcia is listed as 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. So Ryan Garcia is significantly taller and significantly longer. He has a 4.5-inch height advantage and also a 2.5-inch reach advantage. And that could be a factor on fight night, depending on Ryan's tactics, of course. Tank Davis is a southpaw, whereas Ryan Garcia is orthodox. That'll be another interesting factor in this fight. How does Ryan deal with Gervonta's southpaw stance? That'll be interesting. And both guys are in and around their primes. I would say Tank Davis, 28 years old, he's in his prime right now. I don't really think he's going to get any better from here. Ryan Garcia is 24 years old, so I don't think Ryan Garcia is in his prime yet. I still think there's room to improve for Ryan Garcia. And overall, I would say Tank Davis, given with that being said, is also the more experienced guy here. So Tank has the experience. He's had more fights. I would say he's been in bigger fights, but Ryan has the advantage of size, length, height, etc. So the tale of the tape is interesting. But anyway, let's briefly break down what I believe each guy should do to win this fight, and at the end of this video I will make my prediction. I think I'll start with the underdog in Ryan Garcia. Now for me, Ryan Garcia is a guy who has all of the physical attributes in the world in regards to hand speed, explosiveness, things of that nature. He's a quick-handed guy, he's got decent timing, especially with that left hook. He's got a lot of good attributes, but he's got a lot of technical flaws when he throws shots, particularly when he leads with punches. especially the jab and the right hand, You know, he'll do silly little things like fall in. He'll overreach at times when he throws his straight right hand. Things of that nature. I think he needs to be very wary of that, especially early on in this fight. If I'm Ryan Garcia, I wouldn't be giving too much away early on in this fight. I wouldn't be overextending or throwing punches on the front foot that much. I would be trying to draw the lead of Gervonta Davis. If I'm Ryan Garcia, I utilise my height and reach and primarily box behind that jab. Try and keep Tank Davis at arm's length. Tank Davis has very quick hands, very quick reactions, quick upper body movement. But one thing about Tank that isn't all that quick is how he moves around the ring, especially on the front foot. He kind of plods forwards at times, Tank Davis. It's not like he closes the distance exceptionally quickly. Sometimes he does when he explodes with power shots and he'll lunge in, he'll jump in. But Tank doesn't really cut the distance that quickly. He's not all that effective at applying pressure. Tank is best when a guy is coming onto him. I would take that away from Tank Davis in this fight if I was Ryan Garcia. I'd be using that height and reach and trying to frustrate Tank Davis early on behind that jab. If you're going to throw the right hand, I wouldn't load up on it. I would throw it quick and straight, but don't lunge into it. Don't put all your body weight into it. Just use it as another avenue to keep Tank at arm's length. Try to frustrate Tank. Try to win the early rounds. Try to install some panic in Tank's mind and his corner's mind. You know, win the early rounds. Make it a boxing match early on, I would say, if I'm Ryan Garcia. I know Ryan Garcia doesn't have the reputation of being like a great outboxer, but if you look at Tank's career, do you have to be a great outboxer to win rounds against Tank? No, you don't. We saw Rolly Romero have success with his jab against Tank Davis, and Rolly can't box. Let's just be real here. He was winning rounds against Ryan based on his jab alone. Hector Garcia, another guy. Leo Santa Cruz, another guy. You know, these guys are not as athletically gifted as Ryan Garcia. They're not as hard punching as Ryan Garcia. They're not as quick as Ryan Garcia. They're not as big as Ryan Garcia. And these guys had success against Tank winning rounds. So I can see Ryan winning rounds based off his jab when he keeps it long. Don't give anything away. Take the atmosphere out of the arena. You know, try to befuddle Tank with the long punches and box off that back foot. Only load up on the left hook if the opportunity presents itself. But early on, if I'm Ryan Garcia, I'd be focused on winning rounds, building up a lead. Again, installing doubt in Tank's mind. Tank is occasionally emotional in his approach. We've seen that in a couple of fights, like the Fonseca fight, where he was visibly getting frustrated, loading up on power shots, swinging shots. He didn't look right in that fight, and Fonseca was nothing special, but he was awkward, and you could tell in that fight Tank was getting frustrated. If Ryan can win the early rounds against Tank, and draw that frustration out of Tank, that is when Ryan's counterpunching can come into play, especially the left hook, of course. When Tank, maybe he starts to lunge in, maybe he starts to take more risks. That is when Ryan can really look for the left hook as Tank is coming in, trying to make something happen. So I would morph from boxer to then counterpuncher, providing Ryan wins the early rounds based on the jab. If he does that, then morph into counterpuncher or boxer counterpuncher. Try to time Tank coming in. If that doesn't work, that's interesting because Ryan, you would then think, would have to either employ a boxer puncher style, which is risky because again, Ryan, when he loads up, especially on the straight right, does fall in, and that's money for Tank's uppercut. But if the boxing doesn't work early on, I'd probably just be looking to counter early on, to be honest. I wouldn't chase the fight initially in this fight. I wouldn't chase it too early because when Tank is fresh, when he's quick, when he's agile, I think that could be a recipe for disaster for Ryan Garcia. So yeah, if boxing doesn't work early on, just be a counterpuncher. And if you're not having success with that, then in the second half, that is when Ryan should take risks and really go for Tank. Also, another area in which I'd like to see Ryan attack would be the body of Tank Davis. Again, early on that might be tricky when you're boxing, but vary the jab from body to head. Stab that jab in Tank's torso, his upper body, his solar plexus, etc. Mix up that jab, vary it from body to head. Give Tank different looks, and that means jabbing to the body. But also try to throw that straight right to the body. I've seen Ryan occasionally throw the straight right to the body, and he gets good purchase on that shot. Only issue is he needs to be careful not to get countered, but if the shot is there and he's safe, throw those sort of shots, you know. Try and test Tank's body. That's one area where we've not really seen Tank tested, is to his body. I'd be intrigued to see Ryan go to the body, because Ryan is effective to the body. He really can be. And again, there are rumours about Tank not living the life outside the ring. The quickest way to expose that is good body shots. So that's another area in which Ryan should really look at in this fight. Again, especially in the second half of this fight. Especially if he's not having success early on, then maybe switch to a body tack and try and slow down Tank. But for me, Ryan has to be mindful of his defense here. I want to see a tighter guard in this fight, especially early on. I want to see better management of distance, not falling in with shots, because again, against Tank, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. Ryan, again, he needs to merge different styles. I would say boxer early on, then counter-puncher, or counter-puncher early on, then boxer-puncher. Depending on how the fight goes, I would say. Ryan's got the physical attributes to win this fight. He's got the height, he's got the reach, he's got the speed, he's got the power. But he does make a lot of mistakes, that has to be said. And those mistakes need to be minimised in this fight, because Tank, listen, say what you want about Tank's power, he hits hard enough to hurt Ryan Garcia and finish him. I'm not convinced by Ryan's chin, I'll be real. I'm not convinced by it whatsoever. He gives me those Amir Khan vibes, as in athletically gifted, quick, explosive, that sort of thing. He's got attributes many fighters would kill for, but his chin, I'm not convinced by it personally. As for Tank Davis, how does he win this fight? Well, he's the shorter man. He's 5'5.5", fighting a guy who is 5'10" with longer reach. First and foremost, if I'm Tank Davis, I would adopt the role of a counterpuncher early on in this fight. I would be fighting in the crouch. That's one thing Tank does very well, fighting out of that crouch. And he can make himself an even smaller target. He crouches down. He's got good upper body movement. He can lean back and make you really reach in and fall short. If I'm Tank, I'd be making myself an even smaller target early on in this fight. And like I said with Ryan, if I'm Tank, I try to draw the lead of Ryan. But I think if Tank can draw Ryan's lead, I think then Tank could have a lot of success. Because, as I said, Ryan technically is very raw at times, even now. Again, mainly when it comes to falling in short with shots, or he attacks squaring up, things of that nature. His chin is always on centre line. So if I'm Tank Davis, I'd be trying to pull my lead hand for southpaw jab, not use it as a jab necessarily, use it as a rangefinder, try and gauge where you're at in the ring, try to befuddle Ryan Garcia's lead hand with lead hand control, and try to make Ryan Garcia lead with his right hand or left hook. At the same time, Tank needs to merge that with his defense, so fighting short, fighting in a crouch, as that punch comes, duck, lean back, come back with a counter, draw the lead, counter. And I think if Tank can do that, he can hurt Ryan Garcia throughout this fight. I've got more faith in Tank's chin than I do Ryan's. That's not to say Tank's chin is proven, because it's not. He's actually not fought many punchers when you look at his record. But he's just got that build, that stocky build, that thick neck. It looks like he can take a punch better. So by that alone, I do have more faith in Tank's chin than I do Ryan's. So if I'm Tank, I'm trying to test that very early on. I'm going to try and test that very early on. So by doing that, again, fighting out of a crouch, using that southpaw lead as a rangefinder, as a way to stifle Ryan's jab, draw the lead, slip, counter. Tank to me needs to be the counter puncher in this fight. I wouldn't be aggressive too early on if I'm Tank Davis, because of Ryan's attributes for left hook, for body punches, for hand speed, for combinations. That's one thing about Ryan. If Tank comes in square and he lets Ryan throw, Ryan's got better combinations than Tank Davis. He puts his shots together better, in my opinion. So if I'm Tank, I wouldn't be standing in Ryan's wheelhouse. I wouldn't be coming in square and coming in down the middle and letting Ryan unload with combinations. I would try to be tricky early on, defensively cautious, and looking for counters. Also, a shot I like from Tank Davis, and it's a shot in which I don't see him throw enough, it's his lead left hand to the body. I think that's a really good punch. Ryan Garcia's the guy coming down in weight here. He's the guy making the catch weight. He's the guy who has the rehydration clause. Again, make yourself a small target and try to fire that straight left to the body of Ryan. Not necessarily the jab, I'd be looking for the straight left to the body. Of course, that shot in itself could come with a risk, but I think that's a shot worth exploring in camp for Tank Davis. Only thing is, when Tank Davis does do that, he needs to make sure his right hand is glued to his chin to block any left hook that comes back at him, because he could be falling into a left hook if he does that. But if he maintains that right hand high, try to minimise that chance of Ryan Garcia countering with a left hook. And that's another area in which Tank needs to be very cautious of. He's the smaller man here. He's got the southpaw advantage, but he is the smaller man. So lead hand control could be tricky. You could see a scenario where Ryan is playing that lead hand control game and he's able to pull Tank's lead hand down and open up for a jab or a left hook. He needs to be very aware of that. So if I'm Tank and I'm sensing that Ryan's playing that lead hand game a little too much, I would then hold off on pouring with my lead right hand, because Ryan's going to try and get over that pour it down jab or throw a left hook or jab left hook right hand maybe, who knows. So if I'm Tank, I play the lead hand control when it's convenient for me, but don't get too involved in it because Ryan could be setting you up for a left hook. And I think being aggressive in this fight for Tank could be very risky, given Ryan's attributes, but he may need to do that. That's one area where I've never been convinced in regards to Tank. It's his ability to fight off the front foot. He's not actually that great at throwing punches while moving forwards. If I'm training Tank, I would actually have him look at somebody like Povetkin, believe it or not, a shorter heavyweight who fought out of a crouch, who was very explosive, who could close distance quickly and throw big compact hooks. I'd actually have Tank look at Povetkin in regards to offensive fighting, because throughout Povetkin's career he was very effective at fighting bigger men. I know he was orthodox, but I certainly think Tank has the athleticism to pull off what Povetkin did, just out of that southpaw stance. And against a tall guy like Ryan, especially a guy who sometimes carries that lead low, his guard is pretty wide at times, head on centre line, chin in the air. That Povetkin type of ambush offensive style, I think, would be detrimental to Ryan Garcia. I really do. If I was more sold on Tank's offensive game, his front foot game, I would pick him to win this fight hands down. But I don't think it's that developed. I'm asking a lot when I say he should try to replicate Povetkin if he's to fight on front foot. That is asking a lot. After all, Povetkin was an Olympic gold medalist, right? It's asking a lot, but if Tank has to get offensive in this fight, I'd be looking at what Isaac Cruz did to him. That's probably a more realistic style to replicate than Povetkin's, to be honest. Fight out of that crouch, high guard, compact, quickly close the distance, double jab your way in, try and close the pocket and work up close against Ryan. Try to smother Ryan's power. Ryan's left hook, of course, is most effective at mid-range. His right hand is effective at both mid-range and long range. But Ryan on the inside isn't great. He's not great on the inside. We saw that against Carlos Morales, for example, way back when. And I've not really seen the improvements in Ryan's inside game since then. So if Tank can get to the inside, I think he will have success. He's much better at throwing short punches. He's got the uppercuts through the middle, short right hand around the side. The inside could prove very successful for Tank Davis. However, the only issue is getting to the inside, closing that distance could be very, very dangerous for Tank Davis. Could be very, very dangerous. Maybe the best way to get on the inside is to bait Ryan in, you know, make him overextend, make him fall into a clinch, then work on the inside. Trying to close the distance with his feet, with Tank using his feet to close the distance, given his deficiencies on the front foot, might be very risky. It could end in him getting knocked out, to be honest. But yeah, I'll be real, I've got no idea how this fight's going to go. I've got no idea how this fight's going to go. If you asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have said Tank Davis. Recently, I was saying Ryan Garcia. But now the fight's actually here, I've got no fucking clue. So this one really is a pure shot in the dark. I see this genuinely as a 50-50 fight. I can see it going either way. Certainly, if you're a betting man, I think Ryan makes more sense to bet because of the odds. But in actuality, I see this as a 50-50. I think this one's going to come down to who makes the first mistake, or first pivotal mistake, and I think that could be the end of a fight. Quite frankly, I don't think this fight's going the distance. It's possible, but the feeling I get is that somebody's getting knocked out here. That's the feeling I get. I went back and had a look at some of Ryan Garcia's fights, recent fights, and I still see glaring defensive flaws in Ryan's game, especially when he's upping the ante and getting more aggressive. And those are holes in which I can see Tank Davis exploiting. Having said that, I've also seen back some of Tank's more recent fights. I saw Leo Santa Cruz tee off on Tank Davis, and he was a 126-pounder coming up 2 weight classes, I believe. And he was teeing off on Tank, but he couldn't punch. If that's Ryan Garcia, can Tank take those shots? I saw Rolly Romero getting to Tank with his jab. Again, if that was Ryan Garcia in that ring, what would have happened? So I see Ryan's glaring flaws. I see the holes in Tank's recent performances. I can see either guy getting knocked out here. It's literally going to be a flip of a coin. Do I have a coin here? I don't have a coin. I don't have a coin. I don't have a coin. I do have a coin. 1 second. Literally going to be a coin flip. It's a 50p coin. Heads or tails. Heads is Ryan Garcia. Tails is Tank. It's tails. So we got to go with Tank Davis. I'm going to go Tank Davis by knockout. 7th round knockout Tank Davis. That's what I'm going to pick. 7th round knockout Tank Davis. 50-50 fight, in my opinion. Can see it going either way. Looking forward to it. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.